Hello and welcome back to the Connected Everything podcast. For those who don't know, I'm Oliver Fisher, Research Fellow and Knowledge Exchange Lead here at Connected Everything. On our previous podcast, we discussed what made a successful panel pitch from the point of view of the panel member. Areas of importance identified included good innovation, project management, being specific about the problems your project aims to solve, and perhaps most importantly, ensuring your enthusiasm for the project came across in the pitch. Today's podcast again revisits this topic, but from the perspective of the panel pitchers. So today I'm joined feasibility study team from the University of West England, who are investigating if it is possible to model empathy and systematically integrate this into the computational design process. So hello guys and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Oliver.
Hi.
Hello.
So I wonder if we could start, could I ask you all to give you a quick introduction of yourselves? Perhaps if we start with you, Anna.
Yes, so my name is Anna Chatzimichali, and I'm a senior lecturer in design at the University of England. And basically, I'm in the product design cluster.
And I'm Merate Barakat. I'm a senior lecturer in computational design, and I lead the BSc architecture program.
And I'm Yahya Lavaf, senior lecturer in architecture, and I research on geometric form as part of the design process in architecture.
Thank you for all those introductions. So if we jump straight in, you're all from fairly different research backgrounds. So where did you start when developing your pitch? What was your first thoughts?
Well, the pitch started because we come from different backgrounds. We started by mapping the team. We were thinking who are the team members and how we come together. And we started visualizing that. And I was in a way, we were very fortunate because both Yahya and Merate are architects and are used to thinking in a visual way. So we started about mapping the team, then we come up with a visual that was not even possible to design. And then we moved through this process of simplifying it, abstracting it, making it more specific. And then in the end, we've finally come up to the form where we simple visually, and we could position ourselves on the presentation easily. So that was the starting point. And then, of course, it had to do with the actual subject, where we moved from what is subjective and what is objective in the design process and within empathy in design. And we tried to make that as simple as possible. And then we searched for the right visuals, and we put everything together in a line, basically.
So you kind of, it sounded like it was a developing process you started very much looking at the abstract, visualizing it all. What did it become kind of an iterative process? And did you find you were constantly revisiting it and kind of improving and identifying where there might be strengths or weaknesses in the pitch?
Yes, even on the way to the pitch, we continue this process in the train, actually, which made us freak out. So I don't recommend that to anyone else, but I think that Yahya was in the train, was playing devil's advocate, actually. So he pushed us farther, and we made some last minute changes because he pushed us to think some issues farther than the actual presentation at that stage.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear, actually. You don't shows you really kind of worked on it up until the last minute. How did you go about splitting up the presentation so you kind of all group members could be heard from?
I think it's a combination of things. First, every one of us is sort of sees design from a spectrum. So from the sort of quantitative part where Anna is more, engineering, very grounded, and Yahya where he's more qualitative and ephemeral. So we thought, okay, and that's the research itself. So we just thought we'd divide it in 3 parts. But the other part is that Anna has great sort of management skills. Seriously, she was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We learned a lot from her while we're preparing. I'm going to say this, you say what you're comfortable with, and Yahya will say what he's comfortable with, and we'll just deal with it.
Yeah, it sounds really useful having that leadership. I guess you need some direction to kind of get going with it all, don't you?
I think, yeah, it was very important that Anna was the glue, if you like, and it was everything clicking because Anna was in the middle, just passing the ball, if you like, and everything was clicking in terms of who's comfortable most to do what. And we were given this freedom, although Anna was the kind of architect of the project, but we were given quite a freedom to think differently. And I think that was a very successful, I think, process to make people comfortable to what they are going to say and do.
Yeah, and I guess because they're quite short pieces, you only get 5 minutes or so. Was it a bit of a struggle to try and fit all three voices in that 5 minutes? How did you go about kind of
Yeah.
getting around that?
What we did in terms of practicing it, we found a critical friend, very critical friend, and who had this experience of doing the panel pitch and writing bits. And we made sure that what we want to say fits within that time frame. We did practice that with that critical frame to make sure that the things that we want to say, the most important things that we want to say, fits within that 5 minute time frame. Because sometimes you start talking about things and at the end you forget, or you don't get the time to say what the important bits are. But what we kind of started to do is to make sure we are saying, or we are performing basically the main aspect of the design from the start, and then we might go back to it if the questions come. So we kind of let that process of giving the introduction be the second part where the questions come. And I think that was very, very, again, successful, because the questions came in that direction, that we were able to give that introduction, that we were not able to do that otherwise.
That's really interesting. Kind of, you almost tailor the questions or kind of predict ahead of time what you might be getting by leaving out bits of information and waiting for them. How did you go about answering the questions with the three of you? Did you find the questions useful for the project? Did you kind of get any insights from the panel members?
Yeah, I think because we're also friends, we do understand each other's backgrounds and also character. And Anna has some experience, so, and I'll just let her explain from her side. But I think at one point, I don't have a clear timeline in my mind what happened in the panel, but I remember at one point there was a question specifically that I could answer, and I could feel both heads looking at me, and that was my cue to be like, okay, you're on. So you have to have this sort of subliminal cue between each other.
Applying to say that I never actually had another experience of leading a team in a piece. I've given pieces before, but not within a team. And with a team, you don't want to be perceived by the other people like delegating tasks to task members. It has to click like gears. So basically, it has to come organic. And we didn't know how exactly to do that because we've never been in that process before. But I think it has to do with the fact that you trust the other team members. And of course, I had blind spots on the project, but I knew who might be able to answer that. And in a way, I was giving space for the other people to react before taking on a question, for example, or reacting to something the panel said.
That kind of chimes with something Susan said on our last podcast. We talked about how it's important to hear from the whole team and make sure you get everyone there on the day. And it sounds like you guys really took that upon yourselves, and it obviously worked really effectively, ended up getting funded. I was wondering, did you enjoy the process on the day? How did you find? I mean, it's obviously they're always quite stressful, but how much did you enjoy it, if possible? Or
well, apparently I enjoyed the more before the pitch, where we were going to the pitch. It was like going to a very kind of nice intellectual academic party for me. It was really kind of a fun, and apparently it was me that was kind of enjoying that moment, and Anna and Merate were taking all the pressure for themselves. Probably that's the good thing about the team. And when the pitch ended and Merate and Anna kind of enjoyed it more, or that process. But for me, it was kind of very enjoyable experience throughout the pitch as well, and the questions, and seeing people that were interested in what we were doing. It was quite enjoyable, and even the questions coming, you can see that people engaging with you, and the time that you put to produce that, to get to that point, was not just wasted, because you saw people interested in what you're doing, and that was enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I think just a bit of background. When we came, I had a brace on my neck and my arm. And so, and this is probably maybe some advice for people that are going to pitch. It's very stressful when you're trying to look presentable as a female with a brace and sort of an arm sling. And so, and this was my first pitch. And then Anna was stressed too. And so I felt, okay, this is worrying. And I remember one moment Yahya was like dancing, not dancing, but sort of like excited and jumping, and I was completely blank. And I think I offended him at some point. And then at the end, when we're walking down the stairs, that's when I was like, okay, this was fun. But all the way until the pitch ended, it was nice in retrospect.
Yeah, it was stressful as well because the practicalities, we arrived, but we couldn't exactly see where we were going. We had the pin on the map, and I remember it was really cold, and I had morning sickness basically that day as well. And we were all stressed. We couldn't figure out where we need to be. Yahya was overexcited. So came in, we gave the presentation. We figured out that yes, they got it. They can see what we're doing. It's what we see, what we are presenting is interesting, is exciting for other people. It's something that people want to see, want to discuss as well, because during the pitch, one of the questions was that we asked was, what do you think of these ideas? An idea, how would you position yourselves or the network within this idea? And everybody came in, and it was clear to us that they got it, because the idea itself and the project is not something straightforward. And at that stage, we kind of all relaxed. And afterwards, going back and going for a lunch, I think it was the most enjoyable part of the process for me.
Yeah, so you had to kind of get through that presentation. It sounds like you guys had to deal with quite a lot on the way up. Not maybe more Yahya being distracting you all as well. I wish I'd seen it because I have heard really good things from everyone else about it, and I think Deborah mentioned the kind of key to success was it sounded more like it was a conversation with the panel members rather than like a presentation at them.
It was in a way like an invitation. It was an idea that we all three had together, and then we brought in external co-investigators, but we never actually talked about this idea with anyone else. So it was, we were opening up this idea, and this is what we're thinking. So what do you think? So that was the whole environment basically in the pitch. It didn't felt that we are striving to get funding. It felt like, look, we have an interesting idea. What do you think?
In terms of, if I might add, in terms of having a conversation, I think that developed along the way that we were writing the proposal, when we would gather together and talk about the project in a more of a conversation way and bouncing ideas and disagreeing with each other. I think that is the project that I've disagreed with one of the members, which is Anna, the most, which was the most enjoyable thing that I've learned a lot from Anna by when she disagrees with me. So, and Merate is trying to translate some of the things here. So that actually was quite natural. It was not a performance, if you like. It was quite natural, which we picked up along the way, that conversation between each other.
Have you kind of found it useful for the pitch? Have you ever kind of reused it or helped how you go about these presentations in future, these panel pitches?
I mean, we did use it for the Connect Everything conference because it was, by that time COVID was in full swing, so we didn't have the ability to do the way that we normally do it. But then also we have actually introduced some of it into our master's program, and bringing them in to think about it through Studio. I think that's as far as we go. I think Yahya has also.
Yeah, I was marking a dissertation yesterday. I was marking a undergrad dissertation yesterday, and we had the video recorded for the pitch, and I just sent it to him, and I saw the citation of that recording in the dissertation, which was quite interesting as well.
Oh, it shows it can be used in all sorts of ways. It sounds like you guys are really kind of developing it further. So, did you find any kind of? I think we've talked about this a little bit. With kind of you got discussions on the day, but was there any kind of feedback, kind of any formal feedback from the event that you kind of found particularly useful?
I don't think we got any feedback from the pits, because maybe the feedback is given to the teams that are not successful. That was my understanding. I don't think we got something that we could improve in a way, or something that we could change in terms of the presentation back.
Can I add to that, Anna? I think for me personally, and probably you agree, you can chip in if you wish, Anna. The feedback was there, wasn't it, when we started talking? And because you go there, you kind of end going to that pitch, because those people who sat in the panel, they are probably the most knowledgeable about the project that you're doing. So use the opportunity to get your questions across and get feedback. I think the feedback was there, and the moment that we talked about it, how would you implement this idea in your daily practice? And everybody was generous, offering something to that question, which I think the feedback for me was that maybe 3-4 minutes of the end of the pitch, which was valuable, really.
Like you say, I guess you have got a panel of kind of experts within the kind of manufacturing in front of you. Did you guys go to the pitch with kind of any kind of questions in mind to kind of utilize that as a resource?
Not specifically, but because what happened was we gave the pitch and we gave the presentation, and then there was a moment of silence. And I still remember that because it felt like a long time for us. And I was thinking, is this idea too crazy? Did they not get it? Is this why nobody's talking? And then we went in with the questions, which I think they are standardized questions. So it was like by the end of the whole process, I was still thinking, do they actually understand what we were thinking? Do they get it? So I said, based on the question was how do you think that this project might apply to your own practice, to your own research, for example? Where would you position yourself, and how you might find outcomes from this project useful in your own practice? And that's how this question came in, basically. And as Yahya said, it was the best feedback that we could ever get. And it gave us a feeling that, yes, they got it, basically. They understand what we are proposing, and they seem to be positive. They seem to be open to discuss it.
That's really interesting to hear. I've just noticed the time, so I think I might start wrapping it up here by kind of asking you, each of you, for like kind of one key piece of advice for kind of the feasibility studies currently preparing their pitches.
As a PI or as a manager of the project, it's good to have blind spots. It's okay to have blind spots, and it's good to sit on the back, basically, and see how the team members are reacting to the questions. So your process is there to be a facilitator, so the team members can come in front, and you, as Yahya and Merate said, you are the glue, basically. You're the glue that is holding together. So it's not about you, it's about the team members, and it's about the idea, if you are a PI on a team.
And if I may add, I think do your research where you're going to, or if you're given a pitch online, do your research about the panel member. And if you do the research about the panel member, normally you get to probably think about the questions they might ask you, and how you can react to that question. So knowing the background of the panel members would be a good way to kind of reduce the stress of the questions that you might get asked, because you can anticipate some sort of the questions that the person is going to ask you by doing a bit of research about them. So it's a very good way of releasing the stress of the questions, is to do research about them.
My advice would be, sort of, in Connect Everything, it's a network. So when you're pitching for a network, you need to read the room and try to network while you're pitching at the moment, because that's not only are they looking for a good project to fund, but also looking for someone to bring into the network. And so you need to read the room, and sort of it requires a little bit of people skills on the team's side, but also not to be intimidated. Like, this is not a project where you are going to get money and people don't want you to ask for help. They're actually there to help. And so I think be a little relaxed, and on hindsight we might have been relaxed knowing that, but I think that is the biggest thing, especially in Connect Everything.
All three pieces of advice are really, really helpful. Thank you. And especially that last one, I think that's something we've talked about quite a bit on this podcast before. It's a network, and you feasibility teams kind of act as like envoys and ambassadors for the networks once you become part of it. And really, yeah, it goes on. It supports all the network, and hopefully the network supports you guys a bit as well. So that brings the podcast to a close. Thank you. And thank you today for all the podcast contributors. Listeners can find out more about today's podcast feasibility study by heading over to our website, www.connectedeverything.ac.uk. And as always, you can sign up for the weekly emails by clicking the big yellow box on the website to join the network. Thank you for listening.